Hey y'all, I'm Fantasia. Welcome to my channel, Sewing with Tay. Thank you all for coming here and making it this far. If you're new here, I make videos about sewing, DIYs, sewing machines, things I'm working on, things I'm doing in my little fashion business, uh, mom life, boy mom life, new starter log life, all of those things. So if those things are for you, then hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you will know when I'm making new videos. So let's get into today. Today's video is about a hand knit chunky sweater. I saw a little something on Facebook and I shared it. And I'm like, I should make this for myself. And of course, the people know that I be making things. They was like, well, make me one too. And I'm like, well, y'all, I was just kind of talking. I haven't knit anything since college, which was 10 years ago at this point. And the only thing that I did knit was I had to take a machine knitting class that was a requirement to graduate. And baby, those things looked tragic. I don't know if I have pictures, but maybe I'll post. Tragic. So me thinking that I was going to knit this maxi cardi chunky knit sweater. I'll put the inspiration like here. Questionable. But I decided I was up for the challenge. I took a couple of days off work this week, so I'm like, let's do something else that I didn't say that I was supposed to be doing. And here we are. So let's get into making a chunky knit sweater. I used blanket yarn. I watched a bunch of girls on YouTube do this, and I'll put a ad or something in the description. I watched a bunch of girls on YouTube do this, but they were making the short shrug ones, and they look to be on the slimmer side. So one, I want a maxi length one. Two, I'm plus size, I'm a big girl, I got hips and curves. So I need a little bit more. I'm pretty sure I went a little bit too far with the little bit more, but here we are. I was afraid to try this on while I was making it because I thought the loops would come apart. But a coworker told me that you can like safety pin the loops together so they don't come apart. Well, by the time she told me that, I was almost done. So it's real big and cozy and cute. We got some pictures coming. Let's get into the DIY. I got blanket yarn from Hobby Lobby. I don't shop there often, but when I was price comparing, I'm like, I don't know if this is really going to come out the way I want it to come out. I don't want to spend a ton of money. I still spent a ton of money. I don't spend a ton of money. So I went to Hobby Lobby because they were so cheap. It was like almost $6, but like Joann's had them for like $9, $10, something like that. So I was like $6 sound better. So I started there. I originally bought 12. Hold on, I have one. I actually bought 12 of these Yarn Bee from Hobby Lobby. This is, does it say, 28 yards. I used 12 of these. 28 yarn, 28 yards, 8 ounce was the weight. But it's originally like $7.99, but they were like on sale, like 30-40% off or something, maybe like $6. So these are what I used to make my chunkiness sweater. Anything else I need to tell y'all before we get into the knitting? I think that's it. So let's get into the knitting. Preference. I started sewing this and I was just like, I don't know how this is gonna come out. It wasn't really intended to be a tutorial. So it kind of came a tutorial along the way. So there is some images of me actually knitting the actual sweater, but some of the details I did not film. So I had to go back and I filmed them on like a mock-up piece. So I'll tell you, like, this is a mock-up and you will see because it would be a lot smaller than the actual thing. So there are some mock-up pieces and then there are some original videos of me actually making it. So let's get into the knitting. Alright, so this is what your back is going to look like. I wanted mine to be 30 inches wide and 60 inches long. We're going to start with the bottom row, making a chain stitch. You want that chain stitch to be 30 inches or however wide you want yours to be. And you want to count your loops so that you make sure that you stay consistent with the amount of loops. I wanted mine 60 inches long from the back of my neck down to the ground. So again, I did not count these loops, but I just checked as I knitted up how long it was getting. So quick, easy way to make a slip knot. You're just going to twist your yarn. Sometimes I say thread, y'all forgive me. And pull your working thread, your working yarn through. The working yarn is the yarn that is still attached to the ball. So there you have a loop. You don't want this loop to be too big, otherwise it get a little loose. So take your knot, grab your working yarn, pull it out. It's that simple. You want to keep doing this, grabbing the yarn and pulling out until you get to the amount of loops or to the width that you want your back of your cardi, sweater, whatever, to be. So you're gonna keep doing this. This is a mock-up. This isn't my actual sweater because I did not film this part. But yeah, you're just gonna keep doing that loop method until you get to whatever length you want it to be. Working yarn, chain loops. Now you're going to start your first row by making chain loops going the opposite direction you just came from. So go into the loops we just made and pull your working yarn through to make these loops that stick out like this. So I don't know the exact rhyme or reason to do this. So I just was finding a hole, pushing the yarn through so that the loop comes out. I'm not a knitter. I was just doing what I thought looked right based on the videos I saw on YouTube. So this was about, I can't remember exactly, 8 loops. So when I was going through making the first row loops with my working yarn, I just wanted to make sure I had the same amount of loops when I got to the other end. And then you want to make sure your loops aren't too big and make sure they're not too tight, because then it'll make your stitches look a little wonky, which you will probably see on my final cardi because I was still working through. But now you're going to go back the opposite direction, pulling your working yarn through the loops. Basically, this technique of pulling the yarn through is all you need to make the pretty much the entire sweater. You're gonna go left, right, using your working yarn to make new loops, interlooping each loop all the way up until you get to whatever length you want. If you want it 40 inches or if you want it 60 inches, you're gonna measure from that bottom where you started all the way up to the top of your loops, and that's how long it will be. So here you can see I am moving up. We're going to imagine this is the back because I did not film this part of my actual sample. You're going to split this in half to start your front pieces. So this one had 10. So I put a little clip in the middle so I knew where to stop. So I have 5 loops on one side, 5 loops on the other side. You're going to keep making these loops until you get to the front is the same length as the back, and you're just going to fold it over to make sure the same length. So if your front from where that pin is 50 inches, that pin all the way to the other side should be 50 inches. So you're only going to knit one half, and you see here it'll fold in half like that. So that is your shoulder. This was my actual cardigan. You see how massive this was? It was really big. I was like, guys, what did I do? I panicked. I'm like, wait, I'm going to use a mock-up to show you how to do the front pieces. So imagine this is your back, however long your back is going to be. Then we're going to sew 2 sides for your front, a left and a right side. This is how you start the right side after you've already done the left side. So you just want to make a loop here. Make sure you have a long enough tail so it doesn't pull out. Take that loop, put it inside the first loop. And then you're going to pull your tail out to the side so that eventually we'll come back and tie that off and close it up so that we can finish our garment. So you're gonna do the same thing we've been doing, going back and forth, making loops, and go all the way to your clip. Make sure to you have the right amount of loops. I have 5 here. I'm supposed to have 5. You're gonna move your working thread back and forth like we talked about already, and at least I think we talked about already. Make sure your working yarn is going in the direction that you're looping. It makes it a lot easier to pull your loops through. So you'll see here, as I start, I will move the yarn back to the direction that I am going. So let's talk about casting off. This is the hem. So once you finish your front, this is what you do when you get to the end. You're going to make one loop and then another loop. You're going to take your first loop and loop it over the second loop. And then you repeat it. Make a new loop, loop the first loop over the second loop. And basically, you're going to continue this process all the way till you get to the end of all of your loops. Because I definitely was really confused when I was watching this online, so I wanted to make sure that you guys are getting it. So you're just going to create a new loop and pull the old loop that's to the side, whichever side you started on, and then loop it over. So pull through and then loop over, and then you're going to keep just moving your working yarn along, and then keep looping over. The end is what confused me. So you'll see me do this more than once. You're going to take your loop that's not on the end and loop it over. That part is correct. What I kept getting confused with was what to do with the working yarn, and disregard those scissors. These are like crazy dull. So take your first loop and loop it over the last loop. And then you're going to take your working yarn, which you cut, and pull it through the loop, and then pull it all the way out and tighten. You want to make sure that your cast off isn't tight. And I think cast off is an official knitting term, but your hem is a sewing term, whichever way you want to do it. This was my actual sweater. It's massive, like I told you guys. I measured down from the fold edge 12 inches for the sleeve. So right now we need to link the front and back together at the sides. So I got a long piece of yarn, about 3 times the length of the side. I just hooked it through the bottom two most loops and I tied it in a double knot. Don't know if that's what you're supposed to do, but that's what I did. Then I just took 2 loops, one from the top, one from the bottom, and I linked it through. And I pulled my working yarn through those 2 loops. And this took a little bit of time because you have to pull that long piece of yarn. So while you see me go through this process of pulling this yarn back and forth, this entire sweater did not take very much time at all. And I was looking at other videos, people were saying that they made them in a day, some of the shorter ones. This took me about 6 or 7 hours, and it actually came out a lot more oversized. And so I think in doing this again, I probably would use less yarn, make it just a smidge shorter, and I probably wouldn't put a sleeve on. I probably would just keep it a square. But this is here, I linked it all the way up till I got to that 12 inches from the fold. And I still have some yarn left. So I'm going to make a loop and I'm going to push it into one of the loops on the edge along what is going to be my armhole. So I'm going to make those loops all around, and you do want to try to count these so you make sure you don't miss any. Try to make sure your loops are still close. But yeah, I'm just pushing that working yarn through. Eventually this yarn is going to run out, but I'm just going to tie it on to another ball of yarn, and you will see me do that here. I'm just going to make a knot, and then I'm going to pull the knot really tight, and then I'm going to clip it really close to the knot. Once you've got your yarn hooked back up, you're just going to continue with the loops just like you did for the rest of this garment, but you're going to be going in a circle versus going left to right. I did get a little bit confused here, so just make sure you take your time. I counted my loops. I did write it down on a piece of paper. One thing I will say, when you're doing the sleeve, make sure that you're still seeing the different sides of the knit the way they are supposed to. So if you see here, my loops on the body are going left to right. Those are the purl stitches of knitting. When I started making my sleeve, I realized the front side of the knit, and I can't think of what it's called. Hold on. I had to run over to Google real quick and educate myself. So these here are knit stitches. This is actually the sleeve on my original garment. And because I knit this in around, the knit direction is different than the body. You see those are going left to right and these are going up and down. So when you do your sleeve, you want to make sure that you are keeping the purl stitches on the purl side and the knit stitches on the knit side. So just to show you here, this is my sleeve. These are the knit stitches. Those left to right stitches are the purls. The purls are inside the sleeve. So when I originally started to do that, I was going in instead of this way. When I was looping, I started going in and looping out, and it started creating these stitches on this side. So I had to take it out, and luckily it wasn't that many rows. So you just want to make sure that your knit stitches are on the right side and your purl stitches are on the right side. If you want to mix and match, that's your business though. So you're just going to keep doing your loops in a circle. So it's different than the rest of the body where you're going left to right. You're just going to go in a circle. You want to ensure that your looping direction is the same. So if you're going from the outside in, to continue to go outside in, following the direction of your knits and your purls. And then you also will cast off and hem the bottom of your sleeve the same way you did the bottom of your front. So you loop it over, loop it over, loop it over, and then you tie it off. That's your sleeve. And that's pretty much your whole garment for referral. So here is my colossal chunky sweater maxi. I don't even know. I don't have a name for this. It is so big. Like, look at how big this is. Like, it is huge. That is perfect. Most of my YouTube videos have blogs to go with them. So if you want to read the blog and see some pictures, look in the description. I want to thank y'all for watching to the end. Please subscribe. Leave me comments. I feel like this was chaotic, but it wasn't planned. So here we are. Leave me some feedback and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Bye.